and thanks so much for waiting around for those who did, and if you know folks who didn't, get on the phone and call them and let them know that we're here now. And we're really happy to be spending the evening with you. My name is Ira Murfin. I'm really honored to be here, really just to serve the function of directing traffic and asking a few questions. But the man of the hour is, of course, Beau O'Reilly, and we're here to celebrate and encounter his latest album, Thrifty, along with all of the many people who co-wrote the album with him. I will say that I'm not, although I often find myself surrounded by very talented musical people, as I do tonight, I am not such musical person, so I don't know the musical words that you musical people use, so I'll try to hang on as best as I can in these conversations. But it seems like, an interesting place to start is the circumstance of this album and how it came to be, which seems to have come out of the kind of distance and, on some level, sense of loss that that a lot of us are experiencing. Guest appearance from Floyd Packer Murfin Bean. In this past year, when we're separated from each other so often, but then it has this hopeful element of kind of knitting together a community of people through the process of making this album. That's made through a kind of correspondence of Beau sending lyrics to friends and collaborators, and them sending back musical accompaniment that then was recorded by many of the people here with Beau singing the songs. I think it's really built on kind of both the challenges and the possibilities that working together across distance presents. So I think that is like the underlying circumstance of this album, as well as kind of the subject of a lot of it, which I think is a lot of the songs seem to me personal in all sorts of ways, not personal in terms of vulnerability, but also personal just in terms of autobiographical, telling stories, talking about specific times and specific places. So I think that an underlying question for me throughout this whole album, was sort of what was it like, to receive lyrics, words from Beau, and think about what that would, what the musical accompaniment to that might sound like, what the tone or the kind of mood that you would assign these kind of personal anecdotes, memories, stories would be, and then what was it like, Beau, for you to receive back, music is so, does so much to words, right? And makes you feel so many ways about the words that maybe in some cases were quite different than how you were feeling when you wrote them. So I just am curious, before we start listening to the specific songs, although in some ways this is my question for all of you as we go along, what that correspondence was like for you, and maybe what surprised you about it.
Well, I can speak a bit about what was like to receive the things. Maybe we could start there. It was pretty magical for me, honestly. There was a pile of lyrics, and in some cases, I very specifically thought of this person for this one, and in other cases, I thought, oh, I'm interested in what they will choose, and so I would send 2 or 3, sometimes more, to the same person with the idea that they would choose something. And the choices always interested me, and I was often surprised by the choices that were made. When Chris Schoen, for instance, when he chose the Bat and the Fist, I was very surprised by that choice. And yet, afterwards, thinking about it, Chris likes story songs with lots of scenes and lots of language. He writes those those kind of songs, and so it made sense that he would choose that one. And then in some cases, like Sam Clapp, I sent Sam something long and thick and full of a lot of literary thoughts that I was having, and he was busy. He was doing other things, and I kept kind of checking back with him, and nothing was coming back. And so then I thought, oh, maybe it's just the lyric isn't working for him, or isn't jumping him into a musical place. And so I sent him something else, and he responded almost immediately with the song. So, so there was following intuitions in that way. And then I'll also say this and then shut up. In most cases, I didn't really see people at all. I didn't even talk to them on the phone. So it was electronic, which it's not my forte normally. So people would send back a track and I would say, oh, this and that about it. Usually I was just delighted by the track that I got. Yeah.
I was surprised too, Beau. I actually chose the other one that you sent first, and then went back and was going to write you about it, and noticed the other one. Well, I thought I'll give it another try. I'll read it again. And by the time the email was done back to you, it was bat in the fist.
Yeah.
But did anybody feel daunted by the responsibility of setting, Beau's story or Beau's lyrics to music?
I'll tell you honestly, I did. I mean, I'm Beau's longest collaborator next to Court, and the things that Beau sent me, I just had no creativity at all operating really during the pandemic, at least during that part. And so we came up with the idea of something I wrote for him, and that's what my addition to the record is. A character that I've been thinking about for Beau for years and years, and finally actually wrote a song for that character.
Yeah, that raises a good question too. This is sort of having a kind of like assignment based or structure is often a great way to spark creativity. I wonder if anybody was stuck in like many of us have been in sort of the creative doldrums in this pandemic, and if this got you moving in some way.
This is the only thing that I've written during the pandemic, so I was really grateful for the opportunity. And then also, daunted isn't quite the right word. So I wrote the music to the song "The Hook," and it's a really beautiful and poignant and personal topic. So, of course, I wanted to do it justice and was super concerned with how Beau would receive it. So, in that way, I suppose daunting is appropriate.
Yeah, and for me, I had the experience of, so Stephanie set that, she did it fairly early on in terms of people responding to actually doing it. And she sent me a version of her singing it, which I was quite moved by it. And then in the early days of the pandemic, she did, a concert and then a celebration for the anniversary of their club in Madison. So I got to see her do the song twice in different situations. And that was really, besides being beautiful and moving, which it was, I really liked it. It also inspired me to keep going. And Stephanie's was one of the ones, because I don't know how to fucking do this, that I thought I have to get somebody here to play it, somebody in Chicago to play that piano part. So I gave it to one of my musical friends who held on to it for quite a long time before saying, I can't play this. And then I went back to Stephanie, and that began the process of Stephanie actually sending me the track so that I could sing to the track. And I think that was the first one that I thought, oh, I can do this with. Chris did a similar thing. Schoen did a similar thing. And so then I started to think differently about it tactically because the rules were changed. Yeah.
Because originally you were going to record the songs entirely on your side, and people were just going to send.
Yeah, I thought there'd be a musician or two that I would be in the studio with, or I would be in the ISO booth, and they'd be in the main room, which we did do some that way. Jenny and Troy were champs at that. They came and did that more than once. But that's what I thought the whole thing would be like, and it wasn't at all like that. A bit
I mean,
of it.
I think that's one of the kind of like, tantalizing and great things about the album. The sort of texture of it is that some, songs, because they were recorded under different circumstances like that, you get sort of very different feelings of like just where they were recorded, and what people's equipment was like, I guess, and there's just very different sounds and very different feels. And and I think in the liner notes you mentioned a few times, as you just did with Stephanie, the version, the recorded version that the person sent you. So there's also this sense I kept having of like that ghost version, that we don't get to hear, that like in a few cases you specifically said like is very lovely and is particularly, people should hear that version, but it's sort of, there's this whole other embodiment and interpretation of the song underneath yours that that is just very intriguing.
Yeah, and for those of you who know me, and I think that's everybody, I have a pretty healthy ego, so if I fucking think a song, I wrote a song, I'm going to sing it, I'm going to feel pretty darn good about myself singing it most of the time. But usually my experience was, and this is not blowing smoke, wow, I really wish that people would get to hear Vernon sing that song. I really wish that Stephanie's version would be the one that people would hear. I really wish that people would hear Chris or Troy's version of the song. And I wasn't blowing smoke. Those were the ones, that's what I was listening to, was them singing it. And I was trying to learn their cadence and their rhythm in order to go into the studio and do it. Because I did do all the vocals here at ESS. All the lead vocals were all done here. So that gave a certain continuity of sound to it. Yeah, so it's a way of learning too for me.
Is anybody thinking that they might incorporate the song into their own act, or put it on their own CD in the future, like, in their own voice, record their own version?
Possibly.
I think that'd be cool. Add to the legend of the album, because there is a great way that this album sort of diagrams, community of people going out from Beau in interesting ways, even though many of those people may not know each other. But I love the idea that find in other locations versions of the same songs and put that puzzle together. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, can I comment on that? What this is making me realize is that one interesting dynamic of this process was the kind of overlapping of voices. And I think Beau started talking about that a little bit, like he was sort of learning how to do something that was written by someone else in their own way, and sort of that was integral to the song in its way. And so he was not really copying, but certainly trying to embody some of that. And then at the same time, I know I had the experience when I was writing mine that it wasn't a kind of a song that I would write. And I didn't consciously say, I'm going to write a Beau song, but that's kind of what came out. So in these two directions, there's this funny overlapping voices dynamic, and it's like no one owns the voice, but it can't be embodied by just one person either. If that's not too hippy dippy.
No, that's really great. That's really great. Yeah.
Can I make one other comment about collaboration? Because Beau, as a songwriter, has always been a lyricist and has always collaborated with people writing music. It's been often very intensely with one person or with one or two people for years at a time. And I think to me, what was interesting about this was watching it be much more diffuse, and sort of the vulnerability of sending words you wrote to people that you know, but not that well. And certainly they've never set your thing before. And then hearing it back and being like, okay, I don't know if I can sing that. Actually, that's hard for me to sing, but I'm going to give it a go, and I'm going to make it my own. And I think that was, to me, one of the most interesting aspects of the process, is that the collaborators weren't in a groove of like, this is how Beau sings. They just wrote it and he had to deal with it.
If I could say something about the hippy dippiness, as you called it, I actually there's an element of that because it's a community, but the same time, I felt like it was very Nashville or like very professional songwriter-ish in a lot of ways. Like just receiving an email and receiving the prompt of, hey, make something out of this as soon as possible. And you're going to go into the studio with some session players and knock it out in one night. Like that's just not the normal way that I experience music either. Like I've usually rehearsed with the same people over and over and had a lot of ego in the process. You know, it's like the band with like maybe you're gonna have shirts or you're gonna have like an album cover or something. And here that was all completely stripped away. Just about, can I make good chords for this? And so I like that it isolated that task in a way that I've never experienced before, and I found very inspiring.
That's cool.
Yeah, I like the two poles of interpreting that. Is it, you know, because yeah, I was reading it like Chris was kind of, you know, I was thinking a lot that, you know, about the kind of generosity and intimacy on both sides of sort of, you know, doing this, letting the songs go, and the songwriters, you know, sort of writing, you know, attending to, you know, this thing that he'd given each of you to develop. But yeah, it's true that there is a way in which this is like, you know, how songs were written for a long time, right, and still are in many cases, right? It's a, you know, lyric, you know, assembly line almost, right? Lyrics, music, and then, you know, somebody records them, and, you know, it may have little to do with that, you know, first person who, you know, put pen to paper. Yeah, and I was thinking about that too, and, you know, like sometimes when, you know, I don't know, like those, you know, singer-songwriters who, like, you know, worked in, you know, the Brill Building or whatever that, you know, then later on who do their versions of songs that they wrote and that were like pop hits, but have this kind of other emotional element to that. That's sort of what I was imagining of the, you know, the future of these songs in, you know, in your own repertoires. Well, should we move on to hearing some of this music and talking about the songs as we go? So I think first we'll hear Sam Clapp and Beau's song "A Big Black Scarf."
Lend me your big black scarf so I can look more lovely. That scarf, the one you used to wear when we were a pair. We were a pair. A pair of what you're right to ask. The shabby elegance or the word without the slash. I am grateful when I see you. I am grateful that it's all true. That I can stop talking just as long and loud as you. I'm so grateful. Now I am grateful when I hear you. When I'm not sleeping great. You're restless in our kitchen. And it's winter 1988. Now I am grateful that you never smelt the smell of all the flowers. Just as long as loud as you. I'm so grateful. Now I am grateful when I hear you. When I'm sleeping great, you're restless in our kitchen. And it's winter 1988. I am so
Oh no. It is great. I mean, I wonder. Sam Beau mentioned that and mentioned in the notes that he sent you one thing and then followed up with this, and you responded. Did you have? Was that actually your experience? You felt like you didn't know how to deal with the first.
It's not every day you go on a public forum and someone calls you out for not responding to your emails. But that is the case, and it honestly wasn't because of the content of the song. It's just that I was in sort of a pandemic brain fog, as I'm sure many people can relate to, and just couldn't wrap my mind around finishing it. So I think Beau followed up with the new lyrics, and it was just a new assignment, and I jumped on it and was able to complete it.
I'm curious about that. The I'm so grateful's, because it I feel like the song is so it's very much about a sense of loss, but about gratitude, for and an experience across time, thinking back. But then that I'm so grateful, the way it was recorded, has like a mocking edge to it, to like the idea of gratitude that. That it somehow almost undermines the sense of gratitude.
Yeah, I love the banjo playing that Troy did, and Jenny did stirring the pot, brushes on the snare drum, and I really wasn't thinking of it as a satirical or biting song at all. I was leaning into the warmth and sort of sentimentality of it, and all those elements suited it. So I was a little surprised when the vocals came back, but they're actually perfect because the song kind of orbits around this concept of being grateful, and even in the dry lyrics without any of the qualities the singing bring to it, there's clearly the narrator's looking at being grateful from two angles, like being grateful something's over and being grateful that something occurred.
Yeah, that's perfect, and I think the two different voices are great because that's feels like the two different voices in your head about experiences sometimes. Fantastic. Yeah.
I totally thought it was Sister Kate on there, as a matter of fact.
yeah, but I think definitely the surprises that come from making do with what you have as a theme that seems to run through the recording of this album, right? The ways that, sometimes when our backs are against the wall and we just have to make do, that we can do something we wouldn't think of otherwise. I take it, unfortunately, Vernon has not joined us. Is that true? And so, do we want to still play the song?
Talking about dead grandpa, and here's the reason. Who lost his salt shakers and that pepper to sneeze at? Bring it over here and I'll pick it up. It might feel smooth, might feel abrupt, but bring it over here and I'll pick it up, and I will pick it up. Yeah, that'd be great. The hook. Wait a minute now, if you get the notion. Lost ways of knowing how are coming from what's left. Tilly dances drunk in public. She dances when we're watching. And when the rest are headed home, she's me, I'll never stop. She got this body joy thing. She got this body joy thing. Gus chants under his prayer shawl, an army blanket brown as mud. The alley's never warm at night.
I find this song so sort of heart-wrenching. Both the words and the music. It seems to, but again, there's this, element of kind of, I don't know if self-mockery is the right word, but a kind of like, emotional flooding out that kind of gives way, I think, to a more genuine and sincere feeling when it's like almost exhausted in the song. It's just really beautiful and but also like really, really moving.
Because it was just okay, good. Because I don't.
No, they can't hear you.
Oh, are you hearing me now?
It's sort of echoing.
All right.
We can hear you.
Okay, we'll try again. All right. So my sister Beth Ann died in January, and I wrote that shortly after Beth Ann died, and the lyric. And I have a lot of brothers and sisters, which I think most of you know about that. And there's a lot of loss in my family, and but I decided to not write it specifically about her throughout. I wanted to write different parts of that family group and kind of combined personalities a bit. And I actually, it was the very last, I don't think Stephanie knows this. It was the last thing that I recorded because I went back and changed the first verse. So it would be, because I originally sang it as Betty, which was a name that some of my sister's friends used for her, but I didn't know that. So I changed it because I didn't want our family to have to think too much about whether it was really her or not. I didn't think that was the important part of the song. But it does come from a very lost and hurt kind of place, and it was my beginning to experience the deaths through the course of the year, which was a big theme in my life. A lot of people that I knew and people that I'm close to knew died during the course of the year, and Stephanie, as is Stephanie's wont, she really gets the seriousness of things like that. I don't have to explain it; I can just say it, and she gets that. Stephanie and I have written one song together before, Rustle the Bones, which was on the Crooked Mouth album a couple of years ago. And that had a similar take of being something very serious underneath it that she just could get, but she could put musically to life. And her skill on the piano is tremendous. And so I got to use the track that she recorded. And if you listen on headphones, you can hear the sounds of the street at the very end of the recording where the cars are going by outside of I assume it's her house, which Ralph deliberately left on there. But it's very, very quiet. You have to listen closely. But it's very, very, very hard for me to keep redoing that song. And I had to do it in pieces to get it to work. But yeah, and I don't know if Stephanie's still with us, but I'd love to hear what she has to say about it.
Yeah, Stephanie, would love to hear what that was like for you to get those words, and then how you went about kind of intuiting that tone for the song.
Yeah, I think I also had gotten an email from Beau earlier with a couple different songs, and I just hadn't gotten to it. Like I really wanted to, and then you sent me that, and I read it instantly, and you told me what it was about, and it just grabbed my heart. So. And then the ending sequence, there's a cascading chords, and it says, I wish I could hold on to that, hook the hook and drag it back. Like that part came first, and the whole song worked toward that part, but backwards, because it's a completely different musical section. That part was always the heart of the song for me, and often where I just would start crying every time I played it for a long time. But yeah, and then the rest of it, I felt kind of like Chris, where I was thinking of a Beau song, like the piano part to me felt like writing a song of Beau's, and imagining him. I know you and know some of your siblings, but imagining some of the characters and who they felt like to me. So yeah, it was just a song that I felt my way through, and again, was honored to write it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was talking to a couple of my friends recently about this record, and they said, well, it's really kind of a folk record. I mean, it's a folk record, right? And I was thinking about it afterwards, and I thought, well, Stephanie's not writing folk songs, and neither is Jeff Kowakalski, and what they do is very, very much more in the what Maestro used to do, of the art rock cabaret kind of tone of the world, and also the drums. That there's drums on a lot of the record, and that alters it from that too. And I'm not sad about people thinking it might be a folk album, because I started that way as a kid. That's all I ever listened to. So I'm not surprised. And my brothers and sisters and I sang a lot together when we were kids. And I've sung a lot with most of them in adulthood too, just in gatherings and sometimes on stage. So singing's part of my family for sure. And Stephanie getting the part about the hook, making it musically that, but also getting the significance of that lyric. I wish that I could. How does it go? I wish that I could be like that. Take the hook and drag it back. Take the hook and drag it back. Take the hook and drag it back. It was Stephanie who suggested calling it the hook. I had called it something else. Yeah.
Right, and of course, there's kind of maybe a reference to like a musical hook, right? That that gets.
Well, that's the two sides of it, right? Yeah.
But in some ways, it's so like the song is so kind of, it's my poor musical vocabulary, but kind of blown out at that point that it's almost like wrestling with that idea, because it's sort of like, gotten ragged in some way, and and the sort of emotional underpinning is kind of showing through the orderliness of the songwriting in a really beautiful way. Yeah, I thought it very much reminded me of like a Brechtian kind of cabaret number. Yeah, for sure. That was the feeling I got from it.
I think
Great, John Shaw's turn.
a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I like that reference, and the Brecht reference has been a big reference in my life for sure. I was 16 when I first saw Three Penny Opera in a production that my father did at the Court Theater, and with the Poor Man's Orchestra. With 6 players who could play lots of instruments, and a very small cast that doubled in did different characters, and it really altered my life for good in a very real way. That specific production of it, and a later production that I saw my friend Court do in that same year, which I'll talk about when we get to Court, but really changed my sense of what music was and what theater could be, just seeing that show. So it's a reference that I often make. And Brecht, for the most part, although there's a few early versions of his work where he would set his own words to music, but for the most part, his words were set to music by others. Also true of Robert Hunter, for instance, from the Grateful Dead. And so I do like to know that there are people who have just done lyrics set to music besides me. That has happened. Hi, John.
So next on the list I have is Heather and Des and
Jeff.
And Jeff. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's listen to that. Yeah.
falling, falling, falling. This grim face, yours, and this a shock. Like kindness turn counter to the clock.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. So maybe I'll start about Heather and Des. So, you know, I had wanted Heather and Des to play on the hook with Stephanie on Stephanie's song. That was my initial thought after hearing them play together during the pandemic. I wanted that accordion and the clarinet sound on the hook, and that just never quite happened. So I asked them to write a prelude to that song, and then asked them to write preludes to the next two songs. I was thinking of it as kind of hooked at that point, and I had other plans for hooking everything, but those fell along the wayside after a little while. But maybe we could hear from Heather and Des about. So they recorded the stuff without me being there. They did it at home.
Yeah, that's almost another remove of, you know, thinking about like sort of correspondence. You know, this like a correspondence album. You know, the lyrics, and then somebody writes the music to it. But this is a case of your lyrics generate music, and then that generates another piece of music.
Yeah.
In some way. What was
The talk
how did you guys work on this, Heather?
Well, for this particular track, I think I started with two themes. One, which was just trying to get from a D minor to a D major and a chord progression that would get us there in an elegant way. And then once Des pulled out the clarinet and made all the beautiful stuff, it occurred to me that it sounded very Jan Tiersen-like, and I'm a big fan of the Amelie movie. And the backstory to that is we had, after my father passed away, we went back and cleared his house, and Des, I don't know where, found my father's clarinet that had not been played in 50 years, grabbed it, took it to his horn guy, got it fixed, and that's what he plays on this song.
Wow.
So the title is an homage to Amelie, and my father's name was Forrest. So that's where that particular song came together.
Wow. I didn't know that. That's really lovely. That's really great. Well, you know, the accordion and the clarinet, you know, that sound. So me and Heather started doing things together a few years before she joined the band. Where Heather was just playing accordion and I was just singing, and I was interested in this more cabaret place and stripping it down even more. And then when I heard that Des played clarinet, because I'd heard Des play many, many years ago when Maestro was a rock and roll band and he was in the Piranha Brothers, but I didn't know him at all. But then when I heard him play with Heather, it was that clarinet sound that I thought, oh, I fucking want to hear more of that. I really like bass clarinet. I like the bass wind and brass instruments in general. And if you listen to the whole record, that's there through the whole record in an interesting way. So there's Troy plays trombone, and there's trombone on the old track with Miki, and there's some tuba. And it for me, it's very deliberate. And there's also no bass basically on the record until Love Around the Corner, where Vicky plays bass, which is the very last song. There's no bass at all. So the lower instruments are carrying that weight sonically, and I wanted that. Yeah. But I didn't know the story about your dad. That's amazing. That's amazing.
And it was fun to voice it on bass clarinet too, because bass clarinet's such an underused instrument. You hear it on film soundtracks whenever the bad guy's on the screen, or something really awful is about to happen. You'll hear the bass clarinet cue creep in, and you go, "Uh-oh!" Subconsciously, you think, "Uh-oh, somebody's going to get shot." So it's nice to use it in a different context here.
Yeah, yeah, and lyrically, the way that lyric came about, I'd given Jeff something else that was quite complicated, and he didn't say yes to it, but he didn't say no to it. He just didn't say anything. And then we met and had coffee, and in person, and we talked about what was going on in our lives, which had nothing fucking to do with music at all, but just real deep crisis things that we're both experiencing with very different people in our lives. And I went home and wrote a set of lyrics, like 4 different things, and sent them to him and said, set all these to music. And he just chose The Falling because he thought it was about him, he said, which it wasn't really, but yeah. And he came up with the melody, the vocal line. I very much did what he told me to do. Yeah.
I mean, I just feel like that clarinet story is so perfect for this album, or at least the first half of this album.
It's really a nice little horn too.
Yeah, it sounds like a good horn.
50-year-old horn.
Yeah.
I threw $100 at it, gave it to my repairman, and said, "Make it work." So now it's part of the family.
The family of horns.
Yes.
I have many horn children.
Wow, very nice.
Well, on the schedule, the plan was to move into talking about production a little bit, but I think also Vernon might have joined us, right?
Oh, is Vernon here?
I've been here.
Vernon, rascal.
I was in the Twilight Zone.
Uh-huh. Maybe
Turn your camera on.
That's possible.
Sure.
All right, Vernon, we're going to try to play a little bit of Hard Bitter Blues.
I see Vern.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We're gonna change the plan here a little bit and play a little bit of Hard Bitter Blue, which is the other song that Vernon wrote with me for this. This is the first one he did. And I will say, as Ralph's looking for this, I fully expected Vernon to say, no, I'm not going to do that. And then I would have had a great opportunity to cover his song Warren Oates is Dead, which was really my evil plan all along, was just to fucking get to sing Vernon's song. But really, Vernon sings it so well, why would you even bother?
Wow.
But if you've never heard Warren Oates is Dead, yeah. All right. Here we go. We all land hard like boulders inside gravity.
Hey.
When we broke up, the sky was a hard, bitter blue. Yeah, so that's the beginning of Hard Bitter Blue. And it was Troy and Jenny who recorded it. And Vernon wrote these beautiful notes to both of the songs that we got to look at. How you doing, Vern?
Oh, well, a guy has his ups, he has his downs, you know. I guess it's just the way existence works, you know. Pretty good.
Yeah.
I can't complain.
All right.
Oh, I've missed you.
Yeah, I've missed you too. I'm glad to see you. I'm not seeing you, but I'm glad I'm hearing you. Yeah. Vernon lives in Detroit. Do you would you have a question for us, Ira, about this song while we're on it?
Well, I just Vernon, we listened to before you were here, we listened to Bring It Over Here, and I will pick it up as well. So you know, just be curious to hear anything that you had to say about writing either of these songs, and how you approached it.
Well, yeah, they send me the lyrics from Beau O'Reilly, and they're kind of jagged. There's like 4 lines in this verse, 7 lines in that verse, and the scansion, the meter's like all over the place. I'm trying to force some kind of structure on it, but it was. I just wound up writing it over and over again on a piece of paper, all the lyrics, and then I'd like start again and start writing it over, and it just took a long time. Wow. You know, I kind of, when I write lyrics, I kind of trust there's kind of a melody hidden in the lyrics. And I kind of changed the way I write songs. Now I like write the melody and I try to find musical words that fit there. It's more of a mosaic. He's kind of taught me how to use the mosaic system.
Ah.
It's
Well,
just
that's
all these jagged little pieces and you're trying to fit them together. If you know what I'm saying.
I do, and I'd love to see the result of your having learned such a new technique, Vernon.
Yeah, it's sort of what I do now.
Uh-huh. Fucking great news.
That's a great way to describe it.
Yeah. Yeah, the lyrics don't make sense anymore when I write them because they're too busy fitting in.
They're too busy fitting in, yeah. That's great. That's great.
That actually sounds a lot like getting the poetry you wrote about how you played the guitar for Hard Bitter Blue and learning how to play from that.
Ah.
I was glad that it had the tuning on it because that helped me learn how to play it in my much quieter fashion.
That was you?
Yeah.
Oh, Troy. Oh,
that was him.
I'm glad I'm here now.
Yeah.
I've been like I'm yelling at my phone trying to get in there for like the last half hour.
Yeah, well, there was lots of technical difficulties, but we're glad you got here too. I will say that in my private stash on my little computer, I have Vern singing the song, and then I have Troy singing the song, and then I have me singing the song, all 3 versions, and which is pretty fun. And that's how I learned it. And there's one part.
You can be the good. I'll
part
be the
where
ugly.
The narrator describes beating a doorknob with a metal rod from a table to break into his own house because he's left the keys inside. And the way he swung that leg is the way and I can't sing the song without hearing Vernon sing that line, which is a true story, by the way. I did break that doorknob with the leg. It took some time. It took a long time, but I did manage to break it.
Wow.
They're all true stories, but they've all been altered to keep us from hating each other.
No one wants cops.
Yeah.
That's one of those limited edition, special side project things. You can release just the 3 versions of the song.
Oh, I've thought about that.
It's its own spin-off.
Yeah, absolutely. If the world was a just place, that would happen right away. Yeah. Well, when I first started writing songs with Maestro Subgunman, I wrote with them for many, many years. I deliberately would not write love songs. I made myself a rule I could not write a love song. And when I wrote a love song, like Love Elevator, which was one of the songs I wrote with Miki, I would give it to somebody else in the band to sing, so I could at least seem to be living up to this plan of never writing love songs. And now I mostly write love songs or broken love songs. But back then, all the songs were non-love songs unless somebody else was singing them. And I think that's probably what got me to write songs for other people to sing in the first place. So I wrote in that band. I wrote for Kate, and I wrote for Colum, and I wrote for Jenny and Miki, because they could sing these more personal things and they would become less personal somehow. Now I don't give a fuck. I'm happy to be personal all the time.
Oh.
Although I think there's a little bit of that, in not quite the same way, but that impulse here of like running these lyrics through somebody else's, mind consciousness.
Well, working with different people is really fun. It's interesting, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
What's peculiar?
What?
Oh, I said it's peculiar.
It's peculiar
Yeah.
to write with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. It stretches your muscles, doesn't it, Vern?
Certain muscles.
Your phone is doing something. Oh, Bree's calling. Sorry.
Well, should we talk with Julie a little bit about the
yeah,
cover
if she's
album?
still with us. And I don't know if John Hain ever came in, but if Julie could talk about the cover a little bit, that'd be great.
Yeah, hi, folk. I will try to talk before the baby intervenes. Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking a major narrative of this project is Beau writes emails to people. Sometimes we read them. Eventually we get to them. And it's harder for me because I live with Beau. So if I don't respond to the email, he lets me know. But I didn't respond to the email for quite a while. And then I started to do drawing, and it wasn't quite happening. And Beau had given me the instruction or what he wanted. And that was, he said, I want a picture of me running away, and my pants are falling down, and all the money's falling out. So, true to life. And eventually, late at night, when the baby was asleep, I started cutting up a bunch of stuff and made it as a collage instead. So it's mostly made of tape and bits of an old pair of Beau's pants and newspaper and just stuff. And then I have to give big credit to our friend Jason Greenberg, who is a whiz at Photoshop and all that stuff, and did a lot of the question answering and the production part of it to make a document out of a physical object. Yeah, so that was most of it. It was pretty fun once I got around to it.
I feel I'm very interested to learn that Beau's running away in the picture, because I was trying to decide if he was waving to somebody that he wanted to meet or hailing a cab.
Yeah, there was some artistic liberty there. I didn't really know why he was supposed to be running away. I imagined he was on a stage running as his pants fell down, which sounds like a lot of the Beau stories we've heard in the past about theater. But yeah, as it stands, it's somewhere in between waving and trying to catch the bus, I think. It's ambiguous.
Yeah, I imagined a cab because somehow I imagined the money. It was like, some kind of indulge. It was like, he was indulging a luxury and taking a cab, and the money was just flowing from his pockets.
Wow. Well, in a way, the project is indulging in a luxury, because I don't know if any of this has occurred to anybody, but all of these recording projects that I make over time, we really don't make any money from it. We spend money on them, but which lets me land a little bit on Uvulittle, because John Hain is not going to talk, but John is a prince, and he has helped us get this stuff out. So the CD is on Uvulittle, and you can find it, you can buy it, and that whole Maestro box set is there, and all the Crooked Mouth is there, and that's a labor of love for John for sure. And the way he did the liner notes on that crisp piece of paper in the inside, that's really beautiful part of the packaging. I'm a big one for liner notes. I sometimes buy the records just for the liner notes and get around to listening to the music eventually, because I really want to read about what happened. And I really enjoyed writing them. And John didn't make me cut them. He let them be long. So there they are inside of the CD cover, which is really great. So if you're one of the three people and listening to this who wants to buy the record, you should go buy it. And you can buy from Uvulittle. You just go online and can buy it there. And I tell you, the CD sounds better than it does electronically. So go a little old school and get the CD.
And I think that the notes have a lot of these anecdotes that we've been hearing about sort of how the songs came into being, which I think is nice.
Yeah.
It's a kind of chronicle of the process.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe
I
think
we have on our
through
schedule
any coffee break time.
Yeah.
So we should move right on to John Shaw.
So go buy the CD. I think we were going to try to sell the CD during the coffee break, but you can buy the CD at the same time or after or really any time. So be sure to do that. They go to Uvulittle website. Is that the way to get the CD?
Yeah, that's the best way. If you see me on the street, I'll sell you one. Yeah. So let's listen to a little of Honey's Mouth, and then we'll talk with John Shaw.
John Shaw, Honey's Mouth.
In a half-light dream, the woeful loner flies. Ragged wings crackle and scream like a loon. And then the raspberry sun comes up. The bottle wind rides the river across the moon. Old friends don't answer the door. They never hear him knocking, weeping maybe, or moaning low. Door knocking would be more shocking. We don't knock, we just sing soft and slow.
Yeah, so that's the beginning of Honey Mouth. Hi, John.
Hi, Beau. Hi, everybody.
Yeah. So this is the first time I've ever written anything with John, and I've known John not very well for many, many years, and I've seen work of his, read some of his book, and he wrote songs with Miki years ago, and Maestro recorded his Chaos and Ruin that John wrote, and my sister Kate used to be in a band, John, so I knew his work. And I had these lyrics kicking around for a while, and I tried to put them to music, and I think Troy tried to too, and it wasn't quite working. And then I wrote the beginning that we just heard was added to it. That lyric was added right before I sent it to John, and then I sent it to John very specifically because of songs of his that I've heard and love the way he uses melody. So yeah.
And I was tickled, so happy and pleased and honored to get lyrics out of the blue after having seen you a handful of times in the last 30 years. And it was just, I was so pleased that you liked what I sent back to you. So,
yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
It sounds like in spite of not having these sort of sporadic interactions over a long period of time, Beau had a good sense of your songwriting. Did you also sort of have Beau's voice in your head, or when you were writing it, or did you?
I couldn't say that. I've just always been a fan of Beau's, and yeah, I've just always been a fan. So I was very happy to imagine him singing something that I would have written, a melody I would have written, and the lyrics took me a while to wrap my mind around, and once I connected with them, it felt good.
Yeah, it's such a wonderful fit, John's music and the words. They just really land. And I had those words probably longer, except for a Big God Has Got In For Me, than anything else that's on the record. They just sat there, and I knew that they were good, and then something could happen with them, but I just didn't quite know where to put it. And then this idea of sending it to John was made it click into place for me. And there's a lovely demo of John doing it too, which you should all hear. But it was Charles Austin who actually played all the guitar parts. And I don't know if you guys know Charles, but and again, this song I had given to somebody else, supposed to be this really great musician, to learn the song and do it. And he said, I can't play this song, which I find always a little baffling when musicians say that. But I don't know how to fucking play anything, so who am I? But so I asked Charles, and I said, Charles, I need this by the end of the weekend, which was complete fabrication. But I know how Charles works. So he just sat down and recorded. I think there's 5 guitar parts on it, actually. And he did the mix himself. So Ralph didn't even get to do the mix on it. He sent the mix of the guitar tracks to us, and then I sang it. And the thing I struggled over, and you'll hear it if you know me, is the moon word. the moon at the end of that first section. I just never could quite land that moon in a way that satisfied me. And I even sang my own harmony, which I never fucking do, because I wanted Troy to sing it. But we just, again, it was like the pandemic kept getting in the way of anybody coming. So I just did it myself. And I end up liking it. I think it gives it a certain feel.
It's really beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah.
Was somebody chiming in?
I think maybe somebody just dropped their coffee cup.
Well, should we hear the Bat and the Fist? But with
sure.
Chris Schoen?
I think we're doing great.
Not only looking, but looking at you. Not only looking, but looking at you. Not only looking, but looking at you. Dead bat at the side of the road. Last thing he heard was that front tire explode. That bat was shrieking when the car was leaking. Going 90 miles an hour down a dead-end road. Watching that bat, see actually a grin-dried, card-faced man. Too young for this bitter thought, too old not to hold the trouble he sought. There's a hole for him to sink in, or a cloak to cover his naked skin. Dead bat at the side of the road. Last thing he heard was that front tire.
Cool. Yeah.
So Chris, what made you switch in the course of writing that email from the lyrics you were going to choose to that one? Chris still here?
I think you're muted, Chris.
You fell off.
I get to give my answer twice. It's going to be better this time. I actually don't know the answer to your question. I don't recall what the other song was, or lyrically, that is. I imagine it just seemed like more of a challenge to do this longer, more lyrically layered song. It's got lots of parts in it. It's got, actually, Beau specified which parts were the bridge and the chorus, and it started with the bridge, which, really is not what a bridge is supposed to do. But I kind of saw what he was up to. So I'm guessing, I don't actually recall the moment that I made the decision, just that I did make it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I mean, it's the one that I thought no one would fucking touch because it's long and there's characters and story. But, I've always written some songs like that, and I really like to write songs like that. And so as soon as I heard Chris do it, I was pretty happy with what it was. And then I had the joy, which is a genuine joy, of getting all the Crooked Mall singers to sing on the song, which was lovely for me to get the harmonies. And Colby, who plays the fiddle, I don't know well, but he was Julie's fiddle teacher, and Miki's worked with him. So I invited him to play in a couple of songs, and the only one that actually happened was this one. And he did it after everything else was pretty much done.
Colby Maddox?
Yeah, Colby Maddox. You know him, Vernon. Yeah.
Oh, I met him a couple of times. Yeah.
Yeah. and that not only looking but looking at you, that has been in my head for a decade. Without the verses, just that little riff. Not only looking but looking at you. Not only looking but looking at you. Not only looking but looking at you. What?
I went down a sort of intellectual rabbit hole with that lyric and the bat, because it just reminded me of, and I'm not an expert in this at all, but of what I think is like a very famous philosophical essay, the What Is It Like to Be a Bat?
Wow.
essay, which is like this sort of, I think, like really important essay in the philosophy of consciousness, and the argument of the essay is that it's about the impossibility of that a human can't. It would be impossible for a human to imagine what it's like to be a bat, right? It would be possible for a human to imagine what it's like to be a bat as a human imagining that, but not to actually be a bat, and it's sort of a response to the body-mind problem. So I don't know. I just wondered if that was in there anywhere, if I was just reassociating a little too much.
That's very fascinating. I never thought of that, but I'm fascinated by that idea. And I do have an odd relationship with bats, which I won't tell because it'll take too long. But I've had some experiences with bats, and this really I wrote it taking a walk early in the pandemic, probably a 20-minute walk with a notebook open and a pen. And I wrote, and there was no old man, and there was no bat. There was an old tree. There was a dead tree. Yeah.
It's interesting. I had this idea that these were like, from 20-year-old notebooks or something, like this sort of lost children that never made it into. I don't know why I had that fantasy, but I definitely wasn't imagining that there were things that you just written a few weeks earlier, because I think you contacted me in May. The pandemic was just a couple weeks old. I did have the John Searle essay in my mind, Ira. Not that it contributed to much, I don't think, because I wasn't, working with words, but I definitely had it in my mind. And then the other thing that occurs to me now, much later in hindsight, is a bat and a fist. I mean, the bat was the species that gave us coronavirus, like a fist.
Right. Yeah, I just thought of that too.
Yeah, that's interesting. That was never even remotely in my mind, but that's very interesting to me. I think I get all pissed off about people cutting down trees, even when they need to go. So outside of VSS, there's 3 new stumps, at least new to me, that right across they used to block the train track, and the trees are now gone. And boy, that kind of stuff pisses me off. So I think I was in that zone more.
Feels angry.
Old people getting hurt, or old animals, or trees, or something.
I love that you had that triggered that thought of that essay here in your head too, Chris.
Yeah, that's great.
It's really just a funny thing.
Well, I mean, how many songs are written from a bat's point of view?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Not just looking, but looking at you. I also sort of feel like this is where, like I feel the first set in the album, is kind of very, there's a lot of loss, there's a lot of mourning, and I feel like this starts to be where the album kind of turns stranger. It's sort of goes into the more kind of esoteric and the more surreal in different places.
Yeah, I think it gets more theatrical actually too. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's a good thing to notice. I agree with that. What do you have next there, Ira?
I have T. Roy Martin. There's a button. Speaking of.
Okay.
Is that what we want to do next, or?
Sure.
There's a button without a coat. There's a coat without a hook. Now there's a hook without an arm. Now there's an arm without a shadow. A smile without a face. Now there's a face that keeps floating. Now there's keep floating without a spot to land. Now there's a spot to land, a spot to stand. And look who's standing in it. There's a toad in this house. You can see it in the mirror. That toad is not feeling well.
There's a toad in this house. Yeah. All right. So this is Troy is kind of responsible for this whole thing happening. So right before I started this project, Troy and I did a few shows a few years ago that some of them got recorded of me doing covers of known writers' songs and some of my friends' songs, what I describe as folk songs. And one of them was a Bob Dylan song. And I was mixing these songs. And Troy was here to comment on the mix. And it was done. And Troy said, well, not much happens. It's all kind of the same. And I think he was talking about his own guitar part, but I took that as an indictment of the whole fucking song. And so I said, I thought about that for a few days, and then I said, Troy, well, if you would write something with me, then we wouldn't need to use this song. And so that's how this song started. I had sent the words to him already, but he hadn't looked at them. But so it was a challenge in that way from both of us to each other. And Troy and I are the nicest men with each other. We don't challenge each other at all about stuff. We're very gentle. And that was the most gentle challenge. So there you go, Troy.
Hey, Beau, we're really getting like a total echo on what you, I don't know if it's because there's two microphones open in the booth there or.
Like a double bow.
So I'm probably less interesting by doing that. So maybe
it depends on what way you want to be interested.
Everybody else has to talk, then I'll just shut up. Go ahead, Troy. Take it, brother.
No, yeah, this is Beau basically got me off the hook for the really super unpleasant guitar playing I did on that Bob Dylan song. I offered to record it at home, and he said, "Well, I sent you lyrics. Why don't you do something with those instead?" So I did that.
I mean, all I'm dying to hear about Troy is the recorders. I don't know if we got to them on when we just listened to it, but I started laughing out loud in delight when I got to that part of the song, listening to it the first time.
Yeah, me
too.
I
recorded I'd recorded through a whole bunch of the song, and there was kind of a break that had to happen, and it needed to have some sustain or something, and I was like, oh, should I try a trombone part? Should I try? And then I just thought about this drawer that had an alto recorder and a soprano recorder in it. I said, oh yeah, I just need to imitate an elementary class playing a solo for a Beau O'Reilly song.
And so how many layers of recorders?
There's three. There's three. 2 layers of soprano and 1 alto recorder.
Yeah. It's pretty remarkable. If you haven't heard it yet, the recorder solo is just remarkable. Yeah. Yeah. One of my dear friends heard that and turned to me and said, "This is really weird. You guys are really weird." And I agreed.
Fantastic.
This is what I mean. I feel like the album starts to go to like, or rummaging around in the attic, and it's getting a little, yeah, like you say, Beau, theatrical. It's a little showier. I think that Torvald's story that's coming up next is definitely plays into that too. But also, yeah, just that strangeness of the imagery and the sounds. Gets brighter. I don't know. Maybe it's like late pandemic. I don't know if these are going in the order they were written. But later in the pandemic, I feel like we've all one moment is getting a little darker, but also like sillier and stranger.
I think it's okay to think of it like that. That's not what happened, but I'm happy to think of it like that. I will say this about ukulele playing, and then I'll shut up. I was remembering today, thinking about this, that I played the ukulele when I was a freshman in high school as part of the ukulele ensemble. And there's a picture of the ukulele ensemble of 18 boys with a lot of pimples standing there playing Ain't She Sweet on the ukulele. And I'm at the end of the row, and my head is turned completely away from the camera, and I'm staring at all the other boys, seemingly reading the chords off of their hands. But what was actually happening was I couldn't play the chords. So I was staring away so no one would notice that I couldn't actually play the chords. And I think that's where I really began to play the cane, which I now play today, is in those moments of having to perform with a bunch of other people of ukulele songs that I could not play the ukulele. So to work with somebody who can actually play the ukulele is going full circle for me. All right, let's.
And Troy can really play the hell out of the ukulele.
Yeah. Let's go to 12.
That's true.
But what was actually play the chord. So yeah, so no one would notice that I couldn't play the chord. That's why is in those moments of having to perform with a bunch of other people of alien songs that I could not play. So the people think that I could play full circle.
Okay, my song's coming up. Next song.
This must be a turn into strangeness you were talking about.
Yes. Well, so, and there was some weird overlapping of Twitch and stuff too. So Miles and I had worked on a couple of plays together, and Miles lived in my apartment for a short period of time too, which is amazing. I wasn't there, but he was there, and I'd heard him play the banjo, and I invited him to lyrics, and he did it, and he did a little demo of it with just the banjo, but it was his idea to have the so that was him. He put that in there, and even the sounds of the baby, which we should get to hear some sounds of the baby. Ralph, can we hear a little bit without driving ourselves crazy? He said a baby crying, and I couldn't quite do that to a baby, but the sounds of the baby are on there. And that came from those were both Miles' suggestions in terms of the arrangement. And then what actually happened is that it came time to record this, and I got very sick and thought I had the COVID, and what I had was pneumonia. But I couldn't come to the studio when they were coming to the studio. So Miles came, and Ralph was here, and only a tiny bit of it got recorded, just a little bit of it got recorded. And so Ralph and I built the rest of it using the demo as a reference and over those ideas. And we had to build it over time. So we did that. But maybe we can hear from Miles, but I'd love to hear the baby noise. Can we hear that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is Ginger singing to the song.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
Wrong song.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's in a couple of places, and so that's really lovely. But are you there, Miles? Still? Are you still with us?
Yeah, I am. I have to say hi, hello. I didn't hear any of my song.
Oh.
Was I unmuted? It was.
I heard that.
I heard people. There was talking over it. I don't know. Maybe it was like the delay. I'm on this.
There's a delay. Yeah.
So
yeah,
yes, Jenny.
What we can hear here in the Skype is nothing compared to like if you just listen to it on Twitch. Like the people listening to it on Twitch can actually hear the song.
Yeah, I know. So, but what I did for some reason, I don't know, maybe there was a delay. I've been like going back and forth between the Switch. I did that, but maybe it messed up. So I actually didn't hear any of the song, and that was my first time hearing it. So I actually haven't heard any of
Well, I'm not the only
composition.
Well, it's really great.
Awesome.
How do you feel to learn that the baby is gurgling and not crying?
Good, I guess. I'm glad a baby wasn't forced to cry. Yeah, I would still, if there's a way for me to hear that, I'd love it. I have no information about it.
I sent it to you, Miles. I've sent it to you a couple of times. But
Really?
I'm really happy to send you the whole thing now, so you can listen to the whole thing.
Buddy, I'm sorry, I've been so. Okay.
That's okay. I will send it to
I thought
you.
I
again.
haven't. I've checked. I've been looking. Maybe I'll double check.
Don't worry about it. But I will send it to you all again.
Okay.
Do you want to share anything about the composition process?
It's time now, but yeah, it was fun. It was a total like Beau O'Reilly. Like I got this email like late at night. I feel, or like I was checking my email late at night, and then I was like, oh, this is probably not real. And then like didn't look at it for a while, and then I was like, oh, that was real. And then even it was in that part of the pandemic where you're like checking your email all the time, but also not at all, so it's this thing of urgency, but also there's no urgency at all because we seem to record it like there was like, oh, get this done quickly, but also which is kind of like my favorite type of thing to do. I would be very interested to hear Beau's thoughts on my banjo playing because I've never thought of myself as like a banjo musician or someone who knows how to play banjo would be a better. So I'd be interested because I missed some of that in my craziness to hear Beau's perspective on my banjo playing. But I kind of thought of it a little bit like adding stuff. I was thinking about like American like song composition. My grandfather was in the Serendipity Singers.
Wow.
Grammy-nominated folk group.
That's pretty great.
And he arranged all their stuff. So that's what I was thinking. That's why I wanted it to be some like more. So I don't know. I suggested some like background. Ooh, I don't know if that's in there, so I have no idea yet.
It's in there. It's in there. What we had to do differently, because you had suggested women's voices, but we just couldn't get anybody to come. So it's me and Ralph doing it, but it's definitely there. And all of your ideas, I think, are in there, and they played pretty well. We had to organize things a little differently because of what we were doing. And I don't think you suggested a glockenspiel part, but there is a glockenspiel part played by Julie Williams. And I think that your banjo playing is perfect for this song. And I've enjoyed your banjo playing in other situations, but it's really perfect for this song. It's almost a children's song, as close as I ever get. So is There's a Button, the song that Troy wrote too, but not quite a children's song. And I think it's really perfect. Now, I don't know. I can't really speak to your technique as a banjo player, Miles, because I don't fucking know anything about any of it. But I think that you played it very well.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Two things I'll add, and then we can move on or whatever. One thing that was very cool for me, I feel like I kind of come from a different musical background and tradition. Just my parents were very musical. They're the ones who introduced me to music stuff, but they're like younger than everyone here. So it was kind of cool. Like people were talking, so it was just like my perception of what a popular song is like is totally different than your guys's, probably, I hope. Right. And that was really cool. That it was like we're coming from completely different songwriting.
Yeah.
Generation is a lame word, but like tradition, I don't know. So that was like when I was a kid, as a baby, like the youngest music I can think of is like Sonic Youth and like that. Like my parents were really into. So it was just cool to kind of approach. I don't know.
No. I'm with you. Well, that's part of why I asked you, actually, is because you would come from a different tradition. But there's an anarchy in our tradition that both you and I share.
Yes, and that's maybe.
And I love that about you, and I love that about working with you.
Second, and then I'll go. I had no, and maybe this I guess is a compliment to you, though. I had no like worries, I guess, that whatever I was going to do wouldn't be good enough, or also that if it wasn't good enough, you'd be like, "Hey, Miles, it's not good," or like, "I don't want it." Like, I felt complete because of the situation. Like it was just, come up with this. Like complete, I had no like, oh no, what if Beau uses it, but it's not how I want it? Like I had completely, which is rare. So I am enjoyed that part of this project.
Well, I mean, I'd love to hear your response when you get to really listen to it. Thank you so much for the song.
I feel like that goes back to Sam's comment at the beginning of like there's an element of like professional, like kind of, professional songwriting, just handing off a product and saying, okay, I did my job, did my part of the job. I don't know what the results will be.
Cool. Yeah, I think of myself as someone who likes music and plays music, but not as like a musician. So it made me feel like that. So maybe I am. Yes, I technically am.
The song's on an album. That's a long way.
Yeah,
a long way there.
It's so cool.
Well, now the last couple of things we've got here kind of depart in different ways from the pattern. So these are kind of the wild cards or the alternates. And the first is Jenny's song that's written entirely by Jenny, but for Beau, I think.
Yeah. We'll hear something.
Oh, that's so amazing.
It's interesting to play nothing. There's definitely a trick to it. You have to lie very still, not breathe, stay relaxed so you don't freak out. It gives you time to think. Being an anglesmith, I've explored getting around things. It took me years to learn that expertise. Avoidance is a dying art, in my opinion. In his opinion, it gives you time to think.
So this comes from a very different context. Jenny, do you want to talk about the
Yeah,
source of this?
this song is from a play called Not Another Day that I wrote a couple years ago, but it was an idea that I had for about 15 years. And the idea was an actor on a soap opera who's a complete asshole and everyone hates him. And they kill him off on the soap opera, but he's such a dick he won't leave. And he has written into his contract.
I remember that.
Yeah, that if he doesn't leave the set, they can't go on without him. So they just play the funeral over and over, and all the people in the soap opera go insane. And it's also about process and how to write an end of something. I have a lot of problems as a writer, and I get very stuck and frozen. And so it was very much about, what do you do when somebody or something won't leave, when it won't be over, when it won't end? And yet, the end is inevitable. It's coming. So anyway, I knew that Beau, I had this idea for a really long time, and I knew he would play the character named Bobby Jinx. And when we finally pushed it forward to actually do the production, it was this huge deal. We had to do this video shoot at an actual funeral home, and Beau had to be in a coffin all day long, and that was super weird. And actually, I was thinking, Beau, what you were saying before about how you had to sing to tracks that, pre-recorded tracks.
Oh, yeah.
But actually, in Not Another Day, that was a lot of the shows I've been writing for the last few years have completely composed scores that then I or other actors sing live to. And this show had this, total electronic score that I composed, and Beau had to sing live to it. And as we all know, when you sing to a track that's pre-recorded, you can't start over, or if you get off, you're screwed. And it bedeviled Beau terribly. And some of our worst fights we've had in the last 10 years were during the rehearsal process of that show, where he was so mad at me and I was so mad at him. because neither one of us could be nice to each other about the fact that it's really hard actually to listen to a pre-recorded track and come in at the right place and, get your pitch and do all the things you have to do. But in the end, he did a brilliant job and he actually got all of his pitches. And so, like I said, during the pandemic, I've just been bizarrely just shut down. Like, this has not been a time for me to like gather my forces and do all the stuff I've been waiting to do at all. Like, so when Beau was asking, can you collaborate and let's do this and this and this, I was just like, dude, I got nothing, literally nothing. And so because Beau loves me, and I know he does, he wanted some aspect of our collaboration on this record, and he liked this song very much from that place. So I think it was really nice to include it. It's a collaboration of 35 years, like it's a different kind of meeting of the minds, I guess.
Did you newly record it for this, or did you do this during? You recorded it during?
Oh yeah, he recorded the vocal for the first time. Actually, that's the only the only recording of his vocal. And as a matter of fact, the songs from this show, my demos with my voice singing all the vocals, are on Uvulittle. It's a little record called Songs from Not Another Day. But so this is the only time Beau has recorded his vocal onto it. So that's very nice to have both versions extant.
Yeah. And when you listen to the record, there's a middle section where to this song where I actually sang a part, but I never got it right. I always fucked it up because rhythmically it's quite difficult. So I said, well, Jenny, why don't you just sing that part? Oh, that's good. Why don't you just sing that part? Why don't you sing the harmony on that? Why don't you just... And then Jenny just sang on top of it. So all the voices on that section on this recording are Jenny, which was my evil plan. That's what I wanted all along, was to have Jenny sing that part of it. But I had to pretend that I was going to get it eventually.
I'd never believed that you were going to get it eventually. So I God bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And of course, Jenny, you're you say your creative energy was not where you wanted it maybe, or during this time, but you're really all over this album.
Yeah. Playing
music, and so your presence and your contribution, I think, is huge.
Yes, I mean that's the delight about having a very wide group of a gang that does a lot of things, is that even if one isn't at their best, there are places that you can plug in and play a role. It's really nice to be a role player. And like when Sam said that thing about the studio musicians, why, that was Troy and I, and we'd never rehearsed the song at all. We were looking at each other like, oh shit, are we going to pull this off? But we did. So that was pretty fun. Yeah. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. I mean, authorship is awesome, but I think, there's other ways to contribute to something. And to
True enough.
Yeah. And I for sure could never have completed this record without Troy and Jenny playing. Like that there were just certain things that I just had to do with someone in the studio. I couldn't just, it had to happen live. And those two came through for me over and over and over again, even though they were quite nervous about the pandemic and had to sing through Mass or play through Mass while I was in another room staring at them through a screen. Yeah. So if I didn't already owe them both, I owe them. And I've always owed them. So I'll just keep owing.
That's all right. You paid me back.
Thank you, Jen. Yeah. And I love how much bass is on this record.
I was going to say, Beau, you said the only song with bass on it was that last song, but that is untrue.
I know. But I wanted to save the sound of this bass, and so they would be surprised. And Jenny's playing everything on that track. It's really great. So maybe we should move to Love Around the Corner. We're a little over time, but we could be okay? Yeah. Okay, they're not going to shut us off. Okay. So this is Love Around the Corner. And Court, are you still with us, Court? You've been very patient.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. Court and I have known each other. I think I was 16 when I met Court. And we've done a lot of things together in the past, and we don't live in the same places anymore and haven't for quite some time. But he remains my very closest male friend. And this is one of his songs that I love to get to sing. So we'll play some of it and then talk. Oh, almost there.
2, 3, 4, 1.
There's love around the corner. Just you wait and see. There's love around the corner. It's there for you and me. So if you get to feeling down and there's nothing you can do, remember there's love around the corner for you. I used to be a lonely boy just waiting for the end. My music was my only joy and my guitar, my only friend.
Yeah, so that's the Crooked Mouth live about 2 years ago here at ESS.
So it's so nice to arrive after this journey at hearing a live recording. There's something so like warm and hopeful about it, you know. Yeah. People together in the same room playing music.
Yeah. And I was thinking about, so you know, when I was 16 and I saw that Threepenny Opera, the other thing I saw, I think that same year, was Corton's production of The Maids by Genet. And it was all men playing the roles in drag. And my glasses were broken, and I had to go into the city by myself with broken glasses. I can't see a fucking thing without my glasses. And I had to get to the University of Chicago to see it. And I got there, and I sat in like the third row, so I had a chance to see them. And I could not see anything on stage, but I could see the shapes and hear the voices. And I think that really fucking altered me for good, Court. I think that changed me. I was already changing with it, but that really changed me. And I've never forgotten that. And that was very, very Court for me always, is that this is a man, this is the first person I've ever known who said, oh, you want to do something? You just go do it. You know, so he played the blues house with old blues guys, and he played the ukulele with Pete Seeger, and he did a lot of activist stuff that other people just talk about doing. And he's the person who showed me how to do all that stuff. And really, my first collaborations were with Court and my friends at that age. So that's high praise, but I mean it.
Well, that's sweet. Sweet to hear that, Beau. You know, this song is over 50 years old. I think it was the first song I ever wrote, 1969, and here you are pulling this thing up. You know, I just was wondering, well, geez. But, you know, I guess love is always around the corner, and hope springs eternal, and it's somehow fitting the time. I mean, you know, let's hope. Let's hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw your father's production of Threepenny at the Court Theater, by the way.
Uh-huh.
It was stunning.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Yeah. Well, it was really great to get to do it with the whole band. And, you know, the whole band was going to make a record, and this was one of the things we were learning for it. And we did a concert here where we recorded the whole concert with the idea that we would use some of those tracks. But being a band, we all disagreed about whether they were good enough, except this one cut. And everybody else forgot about it, but I didn't forget about it. I knew it was there. So when it was time to finish this record, I really wanted to have it on. And I get to sing with them all, and there's a nice Heather accordion solo there, and some bass from Vicky, and yeah.
I love the recording of it. The version of it that you do has got a real kind of well, it's got, you know, it was kind of written as a country song almost, but it's got a kind of wacko country cabaret kind of feel. I love the harmonies and the voices going back and forth. I mean, geez, I didn't know how many times you could play a chorus, and but you really got away with it, and it was very touching to hear it.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm really glad of that. Yeah, it ends the record pretty in a pretty positive, neat way. Yeah.
It's sort of it feels really sweet. It feels really sweet at the end. So I appreciate you doing it, and And I know Jenny. Think I hear you on there too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jenny's the drummer, and she's also singing on there. And Troy singing on there.
Troy it's singing on there too, huh?
Yeah.
Cool.
And is that when Heather was with us or no?
Oh yeah, no, Heather's on it. Heather plays
Heather plays the accordion. Heather, who's sitting right behind you in cyberspace.
Cyberspace. No, she's underneath.
Well, I'm. It's so sweet. It's sweet to be included on an album of your songs, Beau. I so much. I'm touched by it and glad to be there.
Thank you, Court. Thank you very much. Yeah. Well, I'm very happy it's there.
Yeah, definitely ends like sort of buoys things up and sends us out into the night with, feeling a little boisterous.
Yeah. So we'll send a note around to people who weren't able to get in and encourage them to come to see us at the Constellation Links Hall show in May, which so far is just going to be me and Jenny and Troy because we're doing it in a COVID way where there's just few people. But we'll see how that shapes around. But we're definitely going to do that. We'll have a CD release and get the record around. I'm very proud of this record. I think it's great. People should listen to it. And I do want to say one more thing, and then I'll shut up. Is one of the great things about working with everybody on this record that I work with is they're all pretty good lyricists, I mean, they all write really good lyrics. And people should hear their songs. And so for them to step aside from the lyric and let me give them the lyric is very humbling and very genuinely kind.
Wait.
Yeah, I think the feeling of generosity in and the kind of fellow feeling, runs through all of these tracks that everybody's sort of helping each other to shine and to do work that's worthy of the colleagues that you respect and you love and who you appreciate as people and as artists. And I think that's a really beautiful part of this project. I think you all should be really proud of this album. It's a great achievement and also just a great testimony, I think, to what's possible even with the great limitations that we're living with right now, which is that's really moving to me. Because you believe that we're all on hiatus until we get through this thing, and it's great. It's great to be reminded you don't have to be.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Irene. Thank you very much for your work, and I gotta say that Ralph really fucking engineered the hell out of this record. He really produced the record with me. He can't really talk tonight because of all the technical difficulties, but he was an ace throughout. He played instruments and he sang, and he really stepped up. Whenever I would say, "Ralph, can you do this?" He would say, "Oh, you mean clapping time? Yeah, I can do that." And he could. So
we could say to him, what's the line? We're really grateful.
So grateful.
We're so grateful.
Right.
Yeah, thanks to Ralph for the album and for tonight and to ESS, and of course to Uvulittle. And people should go on the web and buy the CD or find Beau in the street.
Yeah.
Hailing a cab as the money flows out of his pockets.
Which will be easier and easier to do. All right. Love you guys. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for your patience.
All right.
Okay.
No problem.
Thank you, Beau, and thanks to everybody. Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.